There's no time.
No. Times.
The time is
13.
o'clock.
All right, here we are. It's Friday night for us.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here having a drink, recording episode 139.
Yeah, with a good microphone again. We finally got our good microphone.
Yeah, we finally replaced our... Well, because we figured... I mean, the other one still works, but it's a little intermittent.
I think it's the jack on there. I think I can fix it by replacing.
We thought it was the cord, but we tried a bunch of different cords and none of them worked.
I think it's the jack that the cord goes in.
So we just bought a new Yeti.
Just bought a new one. I might have fixed that one though.
Because that one was used when we bought it, so I don't know if somebody dropped it or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, it worked okay. But now we have a better one, so hopefully the sound is a lot better, and that means I can start recording some more audiobooks again.
It is a good case today. This is the case that really they kind of based Poltergeist on.
I think the timing of it is very close, so I'm not really sure. I mean, I'd be shocked if Poltergeist wasn't partially based on this, because it's very similar, like what happened.
Yeah.
But like I said, it happened like so close in time that I'm having a hard time like wondering how that could have happened.
They made a TV movie about this that we saw, and they also did an Unsolved Mysteries. I'd actually, out of the two, I'd actually kind of recommend the Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
If you want, it was a lot more concise and a lot more credible, than the TV movie.
Well, the TV movie was a little bit exaggerated, and it was based on the book. And actually, even like the families that wrote the book said that the TV movie wasn't all that accurate. Like it had some kind of...
Yeah.
Some of the shit was the same, but you know what I mean? It's weird because I had never heard of this case, and there's not a huge amount about it. Yeah. I mean, other than, yes, there's a book about it that was written by, you know, one of the families that experienced it. You know, it was like a little segment on Unsolved Mysteries, like back in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and you know, there was a TV movie in the 90s also. But other than that, it's not like a big famous case. I only heard of it because Steve Mera told me about it.
Yeah.
He said, what was that case? And I think it was in Texas. And he's like, and it was, you know, Poltergeist was based on it. It's like, you know, they only moved the headstones, that kind of stuff. He's like, that's where that idea came from.
Right.
And I'm like, no way. I'd never heard of that. I didn't know that it was based on a true story. So eventually, like, then I kind of forgot about it. And then I think somebody in the YouTube comments mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I wanted to do a show about that, because I think a lot of people don't know about that case.
And by chance, my step granddad was involved in the cemetery business in the South, and
so he knows.
I can tell you
he's
how
got some insights into
I
this.
could tell you how shady the cemetery business in the South used to be, and probably still is.
I feel like cemetery
especially
business
low,
everywhere is shady.
Especially low income cemeteries.
Yeah.
Which many times in the South, especially back in the Jim Crow era, was euphemism for black cemeteries.
Yeah.
And my step granddad on my father's side down in Laurel, Mississippi, owned a black cemetery, and this dude was a piece of work. Which is another euphemism for a piece of shit, really.
Yeah, I know.
I can tell you stories about this guy. I might get into some stories about Bill Womack.
Yeah, you should.
Okay. Bill
That's
Womack.
like kind of when Southern people say, bless your heart. That actually means fuck you.
You a piece of work. Yeah. I can tell you about it. I'm not related
Just
to him.
in case you didn't know that.
By the time I was 12, they were already divorced, and my dad wasn't related to him. He was this ex-con my grandmother married, you know, after my real grandfather died. I never met him, my real grandfather, but and he fucking caused a lot of trouble. He caused a lot of trouble. It was funny though, looking back on it. He wasn't a real bad guy. He was just a piece of work.
Yeah.
He was just a crook.
That's a nice way of
Yeah,
putting
he's a
it.
piece of work. Yeah.
All right. So that's our topic today. Sometimes called the Black Hope Curse, the Black Hope Horror. That's what the book is called. So that's usually how it's referred to. So we're going to get into that a little bit. Like I said, may or may not be what Poltergeist is based on. I kind of suspect that it is. But we'll get into that in a minute. I think the only shout out that I had to do is that we have a new patron named Ginger. So hi.
That's a cute name.
And thank you very much
I've always
for
liked
your
that
support.
name.
I like that name too.
It's almost kind of like a stripper or a porn star name, but
It
I
is
still
kind
like
of.
it. I still like it. It's a cute name.
It is, yeah, it is
Yeah.
one of those like stripper porn name type of things.
If your name is Ginger, you're crazy. That girl's crazy. Ginger and Tiffany, those are crazy.
I was just gonna say
crazy
Tiffany is
names.
also the
Yeah,
other. That's
yeah.
your ex-wife's name.
My
isn't it?
ex-wife's name is Tiffany. I can tell you stories about that. I ain't gonna get involved in that. Tiffany's are cute, but
Maybe
they're fucking
one
crazy.
day.
Yeah.
I have a cousin named Tiffany. She's
Yeah.
not crazy though. As far as-
Stephanie's are crazy too.
Okay, I agree with you on that.
Stephanie's and Tiffany's and Gingers.
I think most Stephanies I've known have been
and then like
crazy.
in more recent eras, oh man, Brittany's every Brittany I know is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Britneys
Yeah.
are crazy.
Have you ever seen like every now and then like somebody will post on like Facebook or Instagram or something like that, like one of those fucking lists of like crazy girl names? I have to admit, I always look to see if mine is on there.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy though.
Nah, that's been around forever. It's not crazy.
Yeah, it's an old Welsh name. It
Yeah.
comes from Guinevere, actually.
Yeah, Gwenfenfur. I think.
That's what you call. That's what you
Gwenfenfur,
say.
I think was the original spelling. That's what it looked like. It was.
God, I hope
The way it
not.
looked like it was spelled.
No, well, it comes from
Gwenfenfur.
it comes from Guinevere.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't know how it was.
was a
spelled.
Welsh
I
name.
saw it written, and that's what it looked like. It said Gwenfenfur.
I think you thought. I think you.
I
saw
could
that.
show it to
I
you.
think you saw that wrong.
Okay.
I never liked my name,
It's all right.
honestly.
That's good.
I always liked. I don't mind being Jenny, but I don't really
Yeah.
like Jennifer.
She got mad when I called her Jennifer sometimes. But it's just to me, Jenny and Jennifer are interchangeable, so I don't really understand the issue.
I think it's because, well, one, because when I was growing up, I mean, I was born in 1972, which is either a year or two after that fucking movie Love Story came out, or
Yeah.
like with Ally McGraw or whoever, and her character was named Jennifer in it, and every fucking person was named Jennifer that fucking year. I was in high school. My English class, which was tiny, it was like only 17 people. There were 5 fucking Jennifers in that class. Everybody was named Jennifer or Heather.
It's weird.
Jennifer, Heather, and Brian.
It's weird. I don't ever seem to run into anybody else named Tom.
There aren't a lot of Toms.
This should be a common name, but I never run into
It should
enough-
be, but you
I
know
never
what?
run into
I
them.
can't think of a single person
Yeah.
growing up that I knew named
Yeah.
Tom or Thomas.
Let's get to the show.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, we're talking about the Black Hope haunting, Black Hope curse, whatever you want to call it. Although I did note when I was looking up Black Hope curse, there is also like a gothic clothing store with that name.
Really?
Because it's blackhopeCurse.com.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to check out some of their stuff, I just kind of came across it by accident. But yeah, like I said, Steve Mera actually kind of first turned me onto this case. And then I looked up the Unsolved Mysteries. We watched the TV movie that was based on, I think it was the TV movie, it's called Grave Secrets, The Legacy of Hilltop Drive, which was actually not the name of the street that
can
the
watch it
house
for
was
free.
on. Yeah, it's on, a bunch of people have it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And the Unsolved Mysteries too. This is rad because remember when we did the, you know, our tribute to Unsolved Mysteries, and I was saying that they're usually really good about pulling the official episodes like off of YouTube because a lot of people had them up there like, you know, illegally or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
But now they have their own channel.
Yes, they got them all up there.
So
or a lot
not
of them.
all of them, but they have like a lot of them up there. The Dennis
Yeah.
Farina ones, the Robert Stack ones.
Yeah.
So they were actually
uninterrupted.
yeah, so I actually got to watch them like without
Yeah.
feeling bad about it.
Yeah.
So,
and
because-
that show that we did, Fox News online used our show, or for some reason
I wonder why.
gave a link to our show
Maybe
as
they
a
thought-
tribute to that.
Maybe they
on
thought
there-
that it was a
'cause they came-
actual episode.
I don't think so. They came out with a story saying that Unsolved Mysteries was coming back. And
Yeah,
at the
they're
end-
rebooting it.
Yeah, and at the end of the story, they have a link to our show, and there's right there. It's weird.
Yeah.
And it was a listener that pointed that out to us.
So if you want to go, I saw there was one that had one of the updated ones that had Dennis Farina. That was one of the ones that I saw. And the one that has Black Hope Horror also has like the Black Dahlia case and the Fumbler bank robber from Florida. That fucking
Yeah.
bank robber that used to come in and tripped on everything, which I thought was really funny.
He must have been nervous.
Fucking dork, I guess. Though. They caught him in the end. All right, so this happened in the early 1980s, and that's why I'm wondering, like, if this is like how much of the basis of Poltergeist, because Poltergeist came out in 1982, yes. So supposedly, this neighborhood, it's outside of Houston, Texas. It's like this. Sometimes they say like the subdivision, but it's actually kind of a big area or big subdivision called Newport in Crosby, Texas. And they're building these houses, and They're not like in Poltergeist where they're like super big and fancy or anything. They're pretty just modest, normal looking houses. Because I have a picture of it. I'll show it to you. Because I have a picture of the exact same house, actually. One of the exact same houses that we're talking about. But so they build this neighborhood in the late 1970s, early 1980s. Now, this couple moves in I guess 1982, although I think the house they moved into was actually built in 1979, and a lot of the sources I read said that they moved in like when the house was new, so I feel like they might have moved in before 1982, but Unsolved Mysteries said it was 1982, so whatever. But the house was built in 1979, according to Zillow. So Sam and Judith Haney, they move into this house, which is, their big dream home, blah, blah, blah. So they move into this house, and then they decide that they're going to dig a swimming pool in their backyard.
This is where it gets interesting.
This is where it gets kind of creepy.
Yeah, they're trying to dig this damn swimming pool.
So before they go to... I don't know if they had, like, the backhoe there or whatever.
No, they didn't at the time.
Yeah, but I guess the word had got around that they were digging a swimming pool in the neighborhood. Yeah. And one day, this dude... This old black man.
Yeah, they don't specify who this guy is. I think they were protecting his identity.
They might have
because he was in some way. He was in the know about this cemetery.
Well, some of the old folks in the neighborhood did know about it because they did ask.
He said he didn't want any involvement or anything. He just gave them the information. He was like, "I know you're planning on putting a
pool there,
a swimming pool there, but he says if you see this, you look at here and then look here. Those little indentations are graves." Yeah, and then he says, "I was not here. You did not see me." And then he backs out, and then a cloud, like something out of one of those damn horror movies. "I was not here. You did not see me." Kind of like from Dune. The guild steersman.
I don't think that's really how it happened, but
that's the way I imagined it.
Yeah, so the Haney family, they said that they were, when they were thinking about digging the pool. This guy turns up either on their doorstep or he just walks into their backyard and says, "Hey, don't dig there because there's bodies."
Those are graves right there, right?
Right.
So they pull out the backhoe, like you do in the South. Well, get that damn backhoe over there.
Well, I mean, I think at first, I've read like little excerpts. I haven't read the whole book that this family wrote, The Black Hope Horror, but I've read like excerpts of stuff that like the people said about it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, at first we kind of thought it was a joke, but then we were like, why would anybody joke about that? Yeah. So then they got kind of curious. So like you said, they get the backhoe and start digging around like where this guy said.
They saw some wood shards.
Yeah.
Coming up, and they says, "Back that backhoe off, put it over there." And they went down there and got in there by hand with some shovels and started digging.
Yeah.
And what did they find?
2 pine boxes.
2 pine boxes with some bones.
With some bones
in there. Yeah, and they're just like real soft, brittle bones. They could see the hands and.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was graves.
Yeah, there was 2 of them.
Yeah, and there were even like wedding rings and things like that.
Isn't that that detail like creeps me out the most. Yeah. Like, what if you were digging in your fucking yard and there's fucking skeletons? Like, they were all, I mean, from everything I read, they said when they dug them up, like, as soon as they were exposed to air, they started, like, crumbling and stuff like that. Because I guess they hadn't really, they hadn't.
Well, they weren't, like, in sealed, high quality.
No, they were just in wooden pine boxes.
Right, they were just regular, cheap-ass pine boxes, so the groundwater can get to you, all the bugs can get to you, and decomposition happens. Yeah. Which, if you ask me, first of all, I don't believe in burial. When I died, no, burn me up, Roman style.
Me too.
Cremate me. I don't want any rotten images of me rotting with worms and shit. Okay?
Yeah,
and the last thing you want to do is don't put me in one of those damn sealed coffins.
Yeah.
With all that embalmed, that embalming and the clothes. Hell no, I don't want anything. I want to vanish. I'm not there anymore. Don't preserve anything, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't really see the point of it either.
No, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's some kind of a tradition that America and I guess Europe, had, is that we have to preserve these bodies. I think it's morbid. I think it's morbid as shit.
It is very morbid when you think about it.
Yeah,
why do you want to keep it?
It comes off as very 1800s. Very Victorian.
Well, it's almost kind of like, we got to keep it in case, the resurrection.
This motherfucker, like taxidermy. You know what I mean? That's what it comes off as. I don't want that. No, just burn me out Roman style.
Well, that's
like Darth Vader on a damn pile, on a damn funeral pyre. You know what I'm talking about? That's,
also I always thought it's a lot more like environmentally friendly to just like, burn yourself and just scatter the ashes.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
don't have to
throw it
like
down.
lay there and
Right.
rot. That's weird.
And I don't want anything that looks like me. You know what I mean? Around with worms eating it and shit. That bothers me. You know?
I don't blame you.
Right.
It is creepy when you think about it.
Right.
To think
But
about
if you're not going, but here's the deal though. When you really think about it, if you're not going to be cremated, if you're going to be buried, if you choose that, okay, don't embalm the person. Don't put them in anything fancy.
let him go back to nature.
Put them in a damn cardboard box and let him go back to nature, and a few weeks later it'll be gone.
Yeah,
I can
like,
understand
as
that.
fertilizer.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I know that's
Then
horrible.
you re-enter
but,
the life cycle.
right.
You know.
I think that's much nicer
Yeah.
because then you might like feed a tree or something like that. That's
And all the
good.
little worms.
Or
and
little animals.
bacteria.
That's
The bacteria get
it's the
you.
circle of life.
Right, yeah.
Just like in The Lion King. But yeah. So they find, they ended up now, as you would, they call the coroner and the sheriff and everything like that. So they come out there and like finish, digging up the site. And they found 25 bone fragments that they determined from a male and a female. Like you said, they found wedding rings. They eventually determined that these were a married couple, obviously, by the name of Betty and Charlie Thomas. Now, these two had been, they had died probably sometime in the 1930s and been buried there. They were former slaves.
That's going way back.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how old they were. I don't think I ever saw any.
Well, they probably died in their
sources that
70s
were
and 80s like
said-
normal
yeah.
people do. So,
yeah, they probably did.
So that would have been ex-slaves.
So after this,
Well, they had free people too, but yeah, there would have been.
Well,
a
they
good chance,
they
right?
had been freed.
They
but,
were freed, right?
Yeah, but what had happened that they found out subsequently, like after they were like, oh well, hell, there are bodies on this land. So then they did some research, asked some like old timers in the area, and they said, oh yeah, that piece of land used to be something called like the McKinney plantation. The McKinney family apparently hired freed slaves to work on this farm, and then when the people that worked for them died, they gave them like this plot of land to be their cemetery. You know what I mean? And it was called the Black Hope Cemetery. Now it did have markers, headstones at some point. It did have that. I do have a photograph that I think might be that was taken like a long time ago.
Yeah, and you guys, you would think that if you put a headstone there, that shit's eternal.
Nothing's eternal.
Nothing's
man.
eternal, and
Nothing.
even those headstones in time crumble away into little rock chips.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long, especially if it was a low quality headstone that wasn't very thick. You know what
Which
I mean? Like,
these did not look like.
yeah,
they
because
were.
they made some of them that were only about an inch thick. Those didn't last. What would happen is they'd fall over from the rain.
Yeah.
And then they'd end up getting cracked because of people stepping on them or just whatever. And then as soon as you get a crack in it, it starts to break up even smaller over time. Time destroys everything.
It definitely does.
Yeah, especially if it's not being upkept by, groundskeepers and gardeners, Living cemeteries that are still making money are cared for, especially if they're near a city.
Yeah.
Or if they're historical. But forgotten cemeteries fall apart very quickly, especially if it's low cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's sad, but
Yeah.
there's only so many. I mean, like this, wasn't a big official cemetery or nothing like that. It was just like this piece of land. They said, hey, you guys can bury your dead over there, you know, put markers there and stuff. Once all those people got old and couldn't take care of their relatives' graves anymore.
Yeah, the relatives, and then after generations, all those people are gone.
Yeah, they either die or move away. So
this whole thing about trying to be eternal or some kind of an eternal monument after your death, oh, fuck no, man. You're dreaming. You're dreaming. You're lucky. I mean, even the pharaohs, their shit wasn't eternal, You're lucky to have a monument exist for a couple hundred years. There was a movie that we watched called The Loved One. It's a fantastic movie. We're going to do a review
we
on
really should. I loved that
from
movie.
the 60s. It's goth as hell. It's about the funeral industry. And they came up with a really good idea in the movie that the only way to really be eternally preserved is to put your ass in orbit or send you out in outer space. That'd be pretty damn near eternal. If you want to be eternal, you better go call SpaceX. It's just up the street from here. They'll throw your ass out into deep space, and yeah, you'll be out there forever. But if you're here on the planet Earth, nah.
Yeah.
The elements get you. The elements and time.
That's right. It's a bitch. I'm just telling
It's
you.
only a matter of time.
Yeah.
So don't even try. That's why I just want to be cremated.
That's
Turn
what
me
I
into
mean.
dust.
I mean, you might as well. Like I said, I don't like to take up room, especially like I don't need to be here anymore if I'm not, if my personality's not in there.
After
anymore.
you die, 70 years later, you're totally forgotten. The people that are related to you are dead.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers you.
Yeah.
Unless you're a famous motherfucker.
Yeah, you're pretty damn famous though, because even even people that were famous like 100 years ago, a lot of
they're
people
all
don't
gone.
remember who
Yeah,
they
you don't
are.
remember who they are. Famous movie stars, it's only a few of them.
Only
remember.
a handful
Right.
of them still get remembered. So, like I said, you're.
Yeah,
You're
really the
probably
people that are. If you want to be remembered forever, be a bad motherfucker like Genghis Khan, or Attila the Hun.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
isn't that sad? Be
Adolf
like
Hitler-
Vlad the Impaler.
Adolf Hitler will be remembered forever.
I know.
Yeah, so being bad actually makes you more immortal.
Yeah,
in
because
history.
it's every successive generation of people
Yeah.
like, God damn,
Yeah,
like
remember
that
that
evil
guy?
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way human brains work. We love negative shit. I don't
Yeah.
know why that is. But yeah, so like I said, they got a lot of this information from a guy named Jasper Norton, who was like an older guy. And he told him, he's like, yeah, there's bodies all around here. He's like, when I was a teenager, I worked as a grave digger and I, dug a lot of graves in this area. So he's like, pretty much this whole neighborhood. They estimated there were probably about 60 graves in this area. It wasn't like it was like pretty much a single street, like a dozen houses or something like that. And that's the area over which they think most of the cemetery was like beneath. Now they speculate that the last burial at the Black Hope Cemetery was made in about 1939. And then after that, since it was a private piece of land, once the family or whoever that had owned the land previously, once they all died or left or sold the plot or whatever, it was eventually sold to a development company, a real estate developer. And they did, just like in the movie Poltergeist, they just said, hey, well, too much trouble to like move all these dead people, so let's just clear the stones out and we'll build some houses on top of it.
Yeah, which is not as uncommon as people would think.
Probably not.
I'll tell you more about this later.
Yeah, I would think not. Now,
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that those coffins were not modern coffins.
Yeah, like if they were just wood boxes,
Yeah,
just like the fucking Middle Ages.
A
man.
burial like that doesn't last long. So
Right.
after a certain amount of time, contractors and the state and all the zoning stuff, they'll go, nah, those fuckers are all gone. Go ahead and build on there.
Yeah.
That's what they would do because groundwater and bacteria. Bacteria there's bacteria in the earth that goes down miles.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. They think that there's nothing down there. You could take a core sample. Some of these core samples have cored down several miles. They've still found bacteria underneath the surface
Everything
of the earth.
is coated with bacteria.
Yeah, right.
Ever and always. Everywhere.
And that shit eats. And if you're dead, it eats you up.
Sorry for anybody that has OCD out there, but
Yeah,
everything's
it's
just covered.
everywhere.
Everything's covered with fucking bacteria.
The biomass of the earth is mostly these little microbes.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Many times over.
Many times over. That's why I don't really understand the paranoia about big living creatures like us and other things. Most of the Earth's biomass are these little microbes,
Yeah.
and they're making a
They'll
lot of
be
waste.
around long
They'll be around
after we're
forever.
gone.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But yeah, so the Haney family, or the couple, they felt so bad about essentially desecrating these poor people's graves. I think the wedding rings was like kind of the topper because they were just like, Jesus Christ, these were like two actual people. So they actually apparently went to see if they could find relatives of these dead people, but could not find them. So they said, oh, okay, can we, make a nice grave for them, like on the property? We'll make like a nice little resting place for them, because they thought that was the least they could do because they felt so bad about desecrating their graves. Now, apparently, after this happened, this was when all the paranormal shit started going on. So I guess that the couple that was buried there did not like the new gravesite. They were like, they just wished that you hadn't bothered them in their old one.
Yeah. Now, we're going to start getting into the paranormal aspects and the paranormal reports of this case. I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead. A lot of the paranormal stuff that we do, I don't really give it a lot of weight.
Yeah.
There's only certain select cases that sound, legit to me. Based on my experiences. I do believe in the paranormal for any of you new listeners. I had experiences myself with it. But this particular case sounds credible to me.
Because they're not making any super outlandish claims.
Yeah.
Not really.
And I heard the witnesses tell their stories, and it sounds like they really did see something.
And they had some bad shit happen.
Yeah. Images, or what do you call them? Not images, apparitions.
Yeah.
They don't really describe them. They're just kind of an amorphous blob, which I can relate to.
Yeah, like shadowy type of stuff.
Yeah, that was the kind of stuff that I saw. Also, things like poltergeist type.
Yeah, a lot of it was like
toilets flushing.
Poltergeist type.
Yeah,
activity.
weird kind of electrical kind of disturbances with clocks. And that was the kind of stuff that my poltergeist experience had,
Yeah.
And in this particular case, because it's several families, there were young kids there around, and around the age of puberty, which it seems to be that you need that. You need them around to fuel this stuff. Just based on my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So evidently what happened after they reburied this couple, I believe the first thing that happened, now, Sam Haney actually worked the night shift. He didn't get home until like after midnight. So, so Judy was left by herself. Judith was left by herself a lot of the time. She said the first thing that happened was that she had a clock in the bedroom, and she's like, it started like glowing blue and like sparks kind of shooting out of it.
Yeah.
Which drew her attention to it, and then she noticed that it was unplugged. So there was some electrical anomalies there.
Something similar to that happened in Mountain Poltergeist that I was involved in.
Yeah.
Remember the blue haze?
Yeah.
And somebody involved in it did talk about, well, I'm not going to talk about it. Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead. Remember that? Blow dryer evidently ran for a little bit after it was unplugged, but then it wound down very slowly, which just sounds...
Yeah, it was a blow dryer, or wasn't it like
It was a couple
razor,
different appliances.
Like a...
No, it was a blow dryer.
Clipper thing or
It was
something?
a blow dryer.
I thought you told me it was a clipper.
No, it was a blow dryer.
Yeah. So she said that was the first thing that she noticed was like this clock like doing this weird electrical shit. Now, she also said too that either that day or the next day, she said she got out of the shower and she heard like the sliding glass door like opening and closing, like somebody had come in or gone out. And she thought that her husband had come home early. But then she went out there and no one was there. She said she also heard what she thought was her husband's voice asking, "What are you doing?" And when she went out there, there was also no one there. So she heard a voice that sounded like him, but no one was there.
Yeah, there was one little girl said that the toilet would flush, and as the water would go down, she thought she could hear voices talking amongst themselves in there.
I think that was at the other house, because there was another house where shit happened as well.
So she could slightly hear what sounded like voices coming from that. That creeped me out because
that was
if you read Mountain Poltergeist movie, some people might know why that would creep me out, but
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah,
that water thing that you heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the next morning, apparently after all of that happened, after she used the voice and everything, so she goes in the closet to get one of her pairs of shoes, like her favorite pair of shoes. The reenactment and I think the movie shit, it was like just like a pair of red pumps or something like that. So she goes in the closet, they're not there, and she can't find them anywhere. So her and her husband are just like tearing the house apart, going, where the fuck did these shoes go? Then they happen to go outside and saw that the shoes were just sitting there on top of the new graves that they had dug for Betty and Charlie, the two people that were dead. They were just like sitting out there, like someone had just put them out there.
Yeah.
And then they realized, and I'm not quite sure how they knew this. Maybe they knew this from that Jasper guy who knew a lot of the people, because he had dug a lot of the graves in the cemetery. But apparently the day that they found that was Betty, the dead woman, that was her birthday. Yeah. So they thought that the husband's ghost had like put the shoes out there as like a birthday present or something. I was like, ooh, that's creepy.
It's kind of rare. Now with poltergeist phenomenon, classically, poltergeist phenomenon usually is manifesting around a young kid going through puberty, and it's just a bunch of moving objects, and it doesn't really it is a ghost-like phenomenon, but it doesn't seem to be under the control of anything that's dead. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just some kind of invisible phenomenon. They call it RSPK, which is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. Possibly, and I believe, under the control of the subconscious. But in this case, there seems to be poltergeist phenomenon. I think it's RSPK. But it maybe it's being hijacked by either spirits of the dead, or possibly maybe the subconscious of the kids in that area are kind of like bringing their fears of the dead to life.
Yeah, because as
You know what
soon as the bodies were found, I mean, the living
Yeah, the
people,
bodies are found, and then all of a sudden the
all of a
objects
sudden all
start.
this shit happened.
So you might have some kids in there that are scared of
that are
ghosts.
freaking out.
And they're producing an artificial ghost.
I think that's more likely
and
than
then,
a ghost.
and there could even be a chance where, because I think of quantum mechanics and also the quantum soul theory, they're somehow their subconscious minds are tapping in to the past and kind of acting out as if they were spirits of the dead.
Yeah.
Even with the knowledge of the dead, possibly. Like, they knew about the shoes. They knew about the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The dates and stuff involved. So, I mean, it's all a theory.
Well, like I said, I'm always going to think, like, I'm very skeptical of, like, pretty much all paranormal stuff. But if this did really happen like that, I think it's far more likely that it happened, like you said,
RSPK.
then this is
Yeah.
actually the dead people being like, why did you
Right.
move me wrong?
For you know-
and then,
for-
like, getting all mad about
For
it.
any new listeners, in the book that Jenny wrote about my experience, I also talk about a near-death experience from a motorcycle accident and also an out-of-body experience that I had. It was a spontaneous out-of-body experience a few weeks before that. I believe that when you die, you go... I believe in an afterlife. I believe it's a quantum-type afterlife. It is a heaven-like experience, mostly, depending on who you are, probably, or what you're like. But I think that once you cross over, you no longer worry about who you were in the past, and you're not interacting with this world anymore. I think you probably could, but I just don't think I don't think you would care to, because
Yeah.
it's a much larger universe. After you die, you don't care who you were.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge believer in the concept of somebody who's died coming back doing shit.
Yeah.
At least not long term. There's a couple stories where a mother who's recently died come back to help the child at an accident scene.
Yeah.
I can understand that. But somebody who's died years and years before, you know, years
Yeah,
and
why
years
would they
before,
dick around?
the,
That's...
the chances of them coming back and interacting with the living, I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah, because
Based on
I
my
never
near-death
like,
experience.
why would you do that? I never understood.
When
Why
I had
would
my
you hang
near-death
around?
experience, once I saw the other side, per se, and you know, I'll talk... we've done shows about it. You can go back to... What was the name of the show where I talked about it in detail? Out-of-body experience.
We did it, yeah, we
Right
did
here.
one out of body.
Okay, so I'm not holding it back.
While
Just
back.
that- I'm not making you buy the book or anything. I'm just talking about it, you know, because of time constraints. You know, I can't explain everything. But the chances of a person coming back after seeing the afterlife that you want to call it, I think is very slim. It's like heroin. It sucks you in to a higher realm. You can't really resist it. You would much rather be over there than here. And the material world is unimportant, because you're like, it's like, why the fuck would you want to go back to preschool and talk to preschool kids about
That's
blocks?
a good analogy.
You know,
About blocks.
about what color block. That's not the way. That's the way it's like. You're all of a sudden you're in this multiverse. Imagine a 3D internet where you can do anything you want to do. You know what I mean? Where your mind controls your mind controls reality directly, the reality that you experience. It's a higher dimension. You know what I mean? You don't want to come back to this.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of lying there, because I can kind of see. I can kind of see
Never
where.
mind.
I can kind of see where maybe after a time, you may want to come back and experience things again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a limited state. Maybe come back as a person. Maybe come back as an animal. Or something like that. Just to experience in the way that you might want to play a video game again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like virtual reality.
Yeah. So I can see that maybe you might reincarnate.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would like to come back as a kitty.
You might want to come back as an eagle so you could experience what it's like to fly.
That would kind of be,
how to,
that'd be rad too.
and
Actually.
certain elements of fighting for survival.
Or an
maybe
owl.
Maybe you might want to come back as some kind of an extraterrestrial being, because you say, why should we limit ourselves to the planet Earth? It's got to be life out on other planets. And I was also under the impression through my NDE or near death experience that time was open to you, so maybe you could reincarnate in the past. There didn't seem to be.
I don't remember you ever telling me that before.
Well, I didn't really see any kind of. I don't remember seeing any kind of
limitations.
Any kind of limitations in terms of what
gotcha.
was now. Everything was now.
Everything was happening.
So everything was happening at once, so you could access reality at any time. So you can say, well, I want to go back and be an ancient Egyptian. Maybe you could do that. It seemed to be that that's what it was. But, if you read the book or go back and listen to the episode Out of Body Experiences, for me it wasn't very long that the effect, that I was going through that effect. So I wasn't able to explore all the options. I'm just telling you what it seemed to be that you could come back into this dimension at any place.
Right.
Anything you wanted. It was pretty much, wide open.
Yeah, that you could pretty much just
right. You could maybe be reincarnated in the future or in the past, just depending on whatever you wanted.
That would be the only thing, because the only thing I don't like, I'm not really scared of dying or anything like that. I don't like the idea of, I'm going to miss out on shit. You know what I mean? I hate the idea of, man, what if something super fucking cool happens or gets invented, 5 years after I croak? That would suck. So I always kind of like to think that maybe, if I could, I'd just like to hop, 20 years, just to see what I missed. That's all.
The highest level...
Just see what's going on.
The highest levels of the afterlife seemed to be like a singularity. There wasn't much you could do there because it was a singularity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And it was represented to me as just a bunch of white light and a whole bunch of joy and singing. And you know what I mean? You couldn't do anything there.
Yeah.
It was a singularity.
Yeah.
So you could stay in it if you wanted, but you would probably want to come out of there eventually.
Sounds boring.
It was like going home.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to the show.
All right. So when we last left the Black Hope haunting, it was the shoes left on the grave. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now it should be noted that the Haneys were not the only people on the street to experience all of this weird paranormal phenomena. Evidently, there was this other family, the Williams family, that lived, I believe, right across the street. They also had some weird shit happen in there. And so, a bunch of neighbors had weird shit happen in their house. Just, electrical anomaly stuff, the TV coming on or going off by itself, the garage door opening and closing by itself.
It just sounds like basic Poltergeist.
Yeah, toilets flushing, just weird shit like faucets coming on, that kind of stuff. We've had that kind of shit happen here as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people on the street had that kind of stuff happen. But the Williams family... they moved in around the same time as the Haneys did. Now, the first thing, this was Ben and Jean Williams were their names. The first thing that Jean noticed was that even though she was really keen gardener, she'd always had a garden where she lived before and stuff like that. So she starts planting, flowers and shit like that in her yard. She's like, everything I planted there died. And she's like, that had never happened before. So I didn't know what was the matter. So I thought that was a little strange. Then they noticed that all these little sinkholes were opening up in their yard. And the sinkholes looked like, little 6-foot rectangular kind of gravesite looking shit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's we would fill in the holes and the next day they'd be back again. So it looked like these kind of like somebody had dug out all these little square graveyards in their fucking yard, and they couldn't figure out, they wouldn't go away. They kept filling them up and they wouldn't go away. So they also saw this tree in their yard, which again, that was another thing that reminded me of the movie Poltergeist, because the fucking killer tree that ate Robbie or whatever. They see this tree and it has, now the reenactment from the TV movie, I think, showed it as a downward pointing arrow. I'm not sure if that's what it looked like. I think from what I read of what Jasper Norton said and what some other people said in the area, that it wasn't actually an arrow. It was actually two long marks, like that, like just 2 long marks. And it was supposedly because this tree was supposed to mark where this guy had buried his 2 sisters, like in the cemetery. And so he put like this 2 long marks there to mark that's where my sisters are. Like, you know what I mean? So this tree was in the Williams yard, and they thought the markings looked weird because I guess they obviously looked like someone had made them. They weren't like natural. So, and later on they did find out the person that had dug, they said, yeah, I put that there because that's where my sisters were. So the Williams also started experiencing paranormal phenomena in their house. They started seeing like weird shadows like flitting around in the house that they couldn't really explain. Like it'd always be out of the corner of your eye, like a shadow of like a person going along the wall. They started hearing people whispering, like weird conversations. They started smelling stuff in their house. It smelled like, death, like a real yucky, like putrid, rotting kind of smell in their house. They also had a granddaughter that was staying with them. I think that her name was Carly. I think her mom had like moved to, in the TV movie, the mom moved to like Germany or something like that, like with her boyfriend. It was like, hey, here, have my kid for a little while I'm off gallivanting around Europe or whatever. So, they were watching the kid. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what they did in the reenactment. She reported, having like real cold pockets in the house. Like you'd walk through and it'd be like freezing cold in the house, shit like that. She said you always felt like real oppressive, like there was always somebody in there with you or like watching you. She didn't like being in there by herself. Toilets used to flush on their own. She was the one that actually said when the toilets flushed, you would hear, she's like, you didn't hear it when the toilet wasn't flushing, but when the toilet flushed, you would hear conversations. Like you couldn't tell what they were saying, but you could tell that
people were talking.
And they wanted you to hear it. Huh. She said that's what it seemed like. Weird. Like they wanted you to know they were there, but you couldn't really make out what they were saying. Yeah. She's like, and you could only hear it when the toilet flushed. And it flushed like all the time. And apparently they called plumbers, and plumbers like, the toilet can't flush by itself.
If you know how a flush toilet works, you open the back of the toilet, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Nothing there, that could go wrong.
Yeah.
You pull up on that damn chain and it flushes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. It's not like it's an electrical problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like the toilet flushing, in a way, is kind of like creepier because electrical shit, you could always kind of, write that off as, maybe it's a short or maybe it's something like that. But a toilet flushing, that has to physically be that little thing coming up and pulling the little plunger out with the chain.
It's like opening a door, turning doorknobs. It's the equivalent of turning a doorknob.
Yeah, that's basically a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's not just like an electrical short or anything like that.
No.
There has to be somebody doing that.
Yeah.
So, in a way, that's creepy.
How are we doing on time?
Let's see. We are at 42 minutes.
All right, time
do you want to take a break?
Got time to take a break.
Oh, he's getting tired already.
Well, you know how it is. Time to take a break.
He's up on the drinking, man. Even though it is Friday.
I'm cutting back.
We had,
my blood results came back, man, and I had all kinds of enzymes inside.
Remember last episode when we told you he'd just been to the VA and he had his like little thing, and he his blood pressure is high, so they're putting him. They're trying to figure out like what the dosage of the medication is. Yeah. And he also had blood work done, and that came back yesterday. Yeah. And they were like,
"This is mostly normal, but
your liver enzymes are..."
They said it had some liver enzymes in there, and I was thinking, well, that's because I was drinking the night before.
It's not funny, but so...
Yeah, they didn't say it was like super bad. They just said...
Doctors kind of said, might want to
back off on drinking that tequila. So I'm gonna take it down to like only weekends when we're doing the show.
Yeah, because I mean it's...
Before I was drinking every night, but not
pretty
drunk
much
every night, but...
Yeah, we didn't get drunk every night, but we would like watch a movie and have a drink.
Have a drink, and that would like settle me down so I could fall asleep. Because a lot of times, I'm very hyperactive. I got hypervigilance.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, that's a part.
He's not high strung exactly, but he's always.
I'm always on guard.
You're better than you used to be. I have to say.
I don't see the monkeys anymore. You used to.
Yeah. I remember. Did you ever mention that on the show before?
No. I get, the VA pays me. I had PTSD issues and shit. You know what I mean? Used to have these. Oh man.
I had
What was
forgotten
that?
all about the monkeys.
Yeah.
I forgot all about the
I
monkeys.
used to see in my mind screaming monkeys all the time. You know, they were after me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but little flashes. But I don't have it anymore.
You used to have really bad nightmares too.
Yeah, I don't have it anymore.
But you've calmed down a lot, actually.
Mm.
So
I went through a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through a lot.
You did.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't talk about it on the show though.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it, but
Yeah.
you did go through a lot. So,
Yeah.
but I have to say that from when I first met you, like whatever it was, like
Yeah.
9 years ago, probably now,
Yeah.
9-10 years ago, you were a lot more chill than you used to be. You're
Yeah.
still kind of hyper, like
Yeah.
a lot more hyper than me, because I'm so laid back that I'm just kind of like, whatever, I don't give a shit. But, you know what I mean?
Fighting for survival.
Yeah, but
Fighting for
he's
survival. Yeah.
you are a lot more chill than you used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to have fucking nightmares. You used to be like super jumpy.
I never hurt
super...
you though.
No, you never did.
No, I grabbed you a couple times, but
You did, but
yeah.
you never did anything bad. Like,
Yeah.
you never like accidentally punched me in the face while you're sleeping or nothing like
Yeah.
that. But you used to have a lot of nightmares, and you would like thrash around the zoo because it would always like wake me up. And you used to like talk in your sleep, like "fuck you, man, fuck you." Like I would always wake up and hear you
fighting guys.
Yeah,
in my
you'd be
sleep.
fighting dudes in your sleep. Yeah. You haven't done that for a really, really long time. Several years.
Yeah, I used to grab people by the throats in their sleep.
Yep.
I grabbed my ex-wife by the throat in the sleep. I won't fucking kill you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she, it's me. And I go, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I forgot who it was.
Yeah. You never did those to me.
No.
But like you mostly just like thrashed around, and
Yeah, I
like,
used to
and
have-
I would hear you talking to people like "fuck you,
Yeah.
motherfucker." I would hear you saying.
Yeah, I
like,
used to have dreams about being attacked and eaten alive by packs of wild dogs. That was another one.
You know what's weird is I had a dream last night about a zombie and like everybody got
Packs
eaten
of
by
wild
zombies.
dogs trying to kill
Didn't
me.
scare me though.
What else? What else did I used to bother me?
I don't know. I just
It
remember
had
the monkeys.
it was what's that?
I remember the
monkeys.
monkeys.
Yeah.
You used to talk about that all the time.
Swarms of those little bitty like capuchin monkeys.
Yeah, that
Just
scream
teeth.
all the time.
Yeah, screaming and
Yeah.
big piles
Yeah,
of
he said I
them.
used to see that all the time.
Yeah, you'd see them.
Yeah. But yeah, you've been a lot better. But
Yeah.
so in a way, like I kind of it kind of horrifies me to think that what if you'd gone to the VA back then and got
Yeah.
like your blood work, your blood pressure done? It might
Oh, my
have been
blood
like
pressure was
way
fine through the
probably
fucking
been
roof.
way off the charts.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's not that bad now. It's like it's it's high, but it's not that bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, your liver enzymes and stuff. The doctor's like, yeah, might want to lay off the
Yeah.
alcohol a little bit. So we decided that we're just gonna do it on weekends.
Yeah, and
So
I gained a few pounds around here.
it's Friday.
But I was
so-
bulking during that time, so now I'm gonna go to my cutting phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So-
need to like cut out some carbs. and-
Yeah.
We don't eat that many carbs.
I was just eating a lot of protein.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get around to you'll be all right.
I need to lose about 10 pounds, 15
You'll be
pounds.
alright.
Yeah, maybe 10 pounds.
He's
Fat.
monitoring his blood pressure
Yeah.
every day and
working
writing
out.
it down. Yep. Got to
Yeah.
go back and check it out.
Right.
You'll be all right.
You'll be
You're
okay.
you're gonna live forever.
No, I won't.
Not forever, but you know what I mean. It'll serve
Okay.
a long time. Don't worry about it. All right, so we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we will talk a little bit more about the Black Hope haunting and also this other fucking story that I found that also happened in Texas about a similar kind of thing, about a cemetery that they didn't know was there. And you kind of wanted to talk about some more of that too, because you have some
about
experience in that area.
Yeah, about the cemetery business.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in the second half.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break right now. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Here she comes again. Oh, there she is. Oh. Oh, what that? What that? What that? I know. Go under the bridge. I know, you're so sweet. So sweet.
It's in the green.
Oh, no. Oh, no. What's up, Baking? Yeah. Okay. You seem in a bad mood this morning. Okay, I'm sorry.
The Faceless Villain, a collection of the eeriest unsolved murders of the 20th century, Volume 2, includes cases spanning the years from 1960 through 1979, featuring such infamous crimes as the triple homicide at Lake Bodom, the family massacre known as the Good Heart Murders, the serial killings of the Zodiac, Bible John, Jack the Stripper, and the Freeway Phantom, the slaughter of dozens of women and girls along the Highway of Tears and the Texas killing fields, and the mysterious death of suspected spy, the Isdal woman, along with dozens of other fascinating and horrifying accounts. Buy it now from Amazon in print, Kindle, or audiobook format. All right, we are back from the break.
Yeah, we got Pookie over here tearing up boxes.
Yeah, Pookie just came in here. She's like, "Oh, look, it's the new box for the, for the new Yeti microphone." Yeah. She's like, "I'm gonna eat that." That's right, I'm talking about you. Yeah. So, all right. So when we went to the break, we were talking about the Williams family.
Yeah.
Who were the second family who experienced hauntings on this particular street. Like I said, they heard the toilets flushing with the conversation, stuff like that. They heard the back door opening and closing when no one was there. They heard footsteps, all kind of stuff. Now, at this point, Jean is pretty much, her and her granddaughter Carly, they're like, look, we know this is because of, the graveyard in the area that they didn't disclose, so we really need to get the hell out of here. Now, her husband, just as they do on pretty much every episode of A Haunting, says, we can't afford that, all of our money poured into this house, which is fair enough because, not everybody could afford to move at the drop of a hat because it's super expensive.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, maybe we should just stay here and, fight it. Now, after they decided that, then Ben, the husband, apparently he said that he came home from, like I said, he worked in the night shift, and he comes home one night a little past midnight, and he's like in the fridge or whatever, and he's walking down the hall, and he sees these shadow figures like going down the hallway. Like he sees these shadows of people, and he's like, what the fuck? And he's like follows after them, and then he sees one of the figures standing at the end of the bed like over his wife, and it was like and then it like jumped or like hovered over her. Yeah,
the way they were showing it in the reenactment is it looked more like kind of like something out of Predator 1.
Yeah.
Like a shimmery wave.
Yeah.
Which, man, that really reminds me of what I saw in Mammoth Mountain.
Yeah.
There's no way to describe it. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't look that obvious. You're not sure you're seeing it, when you see it. It's just, oh man, I don't know. I won't talk about it. I'm backing off of it. It's like it's there, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
Because
when you start talking about it and you get like all, hyped up about it, sometimes shit starts moving around in the house.
But it's
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it's like it's there, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like a halo around an object, or maybe like in that one time where we felt like it was watching us up from the corner of the room. We knew there was something there, but it just kind of looked like a ball.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like a halo around something round. But you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. So he saw that. He dove at it.
Yeah, it's like, this guy had some giant brass balls. Apparently, like, in the,
he's trying to protect his girl.
Yeah, in an interview with him that he saw, he's like, oh, no, you're not messing with my wife. So he, like, jumped through it.
Yeah.
Like, to protect her.
Kind of cold and sticky, which... That checks out. I don't remember. It's sticky. Sticky's a weird way of...
Yeah.
It was...
Ew.
We would kind of put our hands through those things and it would feel kind of cold and strange, but not really sticky.
Clammy is maybe a better word.
No, it was just kind of cold, and then after your hand went through it, you felt like you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Right. You're like, oh...
Yeah, even though you couldn't really feel anything, there's some kind of an energy there. Let me just put it that way. There's some kind of an energy there that, and it's kind of like you put your hand through a cloud of, I don't know. There's no way to describe it.
Yeah.
There's no way to describe it. You have to see it for yourself. But the way the guy was talking and looking at him, he looked a little too simple to be making something up like that. I was like, yeah, man, we've seen that kind of shit, My family's seen that kind of shit, too. It's weird.
Yeah, well, like I said, none of the claims they're making are super outlandish.
No,
it was
they're not
mostly
really-
little shit around
Right.
their house. Just like, oh, the toilets were flushing, the
Yeah,
faucets came on.
feelings of being watched, and
Yeah.
you look in that direction and you see kind of like something there.
Yeah, like
But
they
you
didn't
can't
say
put your
they
finger
didn't
on
see
it.
like fucking demons or nothing
No.
like that. They said they saw shadows like flickering along the walls.
It's a lot
and
of
shit,
feelings and your senses
Yeah.
being tricked. It's weird.
So now the Williams family, they said that what was that all about?
Cat climbing up the cat tree.
Oh,
Right there, she's out there tearing up the tree, the chairs.
yeah, that's her favorite thing.
Yeah.
That's we call it the kitty merry-go-round
Yeah,
because
she gets underneath the chair.
She
and
gets
goes-
underneath the chair and like goes all the way
Yeah,
around the
upside
bottom
down.
of the chair upside down,
Yeah.
like yay, like pulling herself along with her claws. She's adorable.
She's
But yeah,
a jungle gym.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Williams family, now, while they were living in the house, I don't think they lived there for that long of a time, but while they were living there, evidently, according to most sources I've read, said that 6 of their close relatives were diagnosed with like weird forms of cancer, and 3 of them died. And they attributed that to them living in the house like it was some kind of like curse that was like spreading outwards. So I don't know if that's the case, but they definitely believed
They thought
that was causing it. Now, the other family that I talked about earlier, the Haneys, at this point, they were also getting kind of sick of all this paranormal shit happening in their house. So they said, okay, well, all we can do at this point, maybe we can sue the developers for
Yeah.
not disclosing that it has nothing to do with the ghosts. They were just
Right.
saying for not disclosing that this was a cemetery.
Yeah, and they lost their asses off. on
Well,
that
the
lawsuit.
sad thing about this is that they took it to court, and the first time they took it to court, they won. They won a settlement of $142,000. But then, the developers appealed, and on appeal, the judge, I don't know if it's the same judge or a different one, but he reversed the decision, and he said, oh, well, the developers couldn't be liable. They didn't know that the graveyard was there, blah, de blah, even though they probably did. But, so they threw the verdict out, and then the Haneys ended up having to pay $50,000 in fucking court costs. So they thought they were going to get $142,000.
Yeah, and
They
this is
ended
back
up having,
in the 80s, right?
yeah,
80s or
they
90s.
ended up it was early 80s.
Early, yeah.
They ended up having to pay $50,000. So
Lawyers.
essentially, yeah, they ended up losing all that money. They ended up losing their house. And, so they were like, all right, well, they ended up having to file for bankruptcy. So
Yeah.
fun times. So the problem too was that then the other couple, the Williams, they tried to sue as well. Now, the developers in their case said, well, we want proof that there's a cemetery there. Problem was that in Texas, and maybe probably other states too, it's illegal to dig up a graveyard. So they want proof that there's a cemetery, but it's technically illegal to dig
get
in
the
your
proof.
yard because it's supposedly a cemetery, even though the developers are saying it's not a
So
cemetery.
they got in a conundrum.
It's a catch-22. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, we can't dig it up to prove it's a cemetery, but we don't want to say, you know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
like this whole thing. So there it stood. Now, Jean Williams got so fucking frustrated with the whole situation, as you would, that she was like, you know what? I'm just going to go dig up the fucking they want a body? I'll find a body.
Yeah.
So she says, I'm going to go out there. She's like, she was, an older woman at the time. She's like, I'll dig just like 2 hours a day, or I dig till I get worn out. I'm going to dig till I find a fucking body, and then we're going to get some money out of them. So the story goes, she goes out there and starts digging in the yard, like under the tree that had the marking on it, because she knew that there were probably bodies there, according to, some of the old timers in the area who had dug the graves. She starts digging. Now, apparently she hadn't dug for very long before she started feeling really ill. So she said, well, I have to go lay down. Now, her daughter, Tina, who was 30 at the time, said, well, I'll continue. I'll keep digging and stuff like that. So Tina goes out there and starts digging into the grave. But apparently, a few minutes after Tina started digging, she started feeling sick as well. So she said, I really have to go lay down. So she goes into the house and lays on the couch. And then she basically, she got so bad she started saying, take care of my baby, take care of my baby. And like her mom is like looking at her and just like her eyes are just going all glazed and shit. They call 911. They take her in an ambulance. They take her to the hospital. She dies. 2 days later, massive heart attack, 30 years old.
Yeah.
So the Williams family are like, okay, that was some paranormal shit right there. Because she'd, I mean, you know, from everything I know, she didn't have any former
You can't deny it.
health problems or anything like that. She dropped dead of a
Yeah.
heart attack at 30 years old.
In this case, you can't deny it. There were a lot of witnesses who said that they saw things. Actually, people died in this case. And there were bodies found. So there was a cemetery.
There was a cemetery
There was
there.
a cemetery there, yeah.
I mean, the fact that the houses are still there, like I said, the house where, I don't know if it was the Williams house or the Haney's house, but I think it's 803 Poppet's Way. I was like, Poppet, like a voodoo Poppet, like a voodoo doll. What the
What's
fuck
a
is
poppet? A poppet
It's like a little doll. I mean, maybe there's another. I've never heard it in any context other than like a voodoo context.
Weird.
You know what I mean? Like it means like a little doll. But that's you can see
Well,
pictures
it was
of
a
it if
black
you look.
cemetery at one time. Maybe
True.
it was called a poppet.
Yeah, it might have been, but that's what the street's called now, like at the development.
All that Marie Laveau,
Yeah.
voodoo stuff from back in the day.
So that might be why they call the street
Maybe.
that. I have no idea.
Maybe.
But that's what the street is called. Like I said, you can look up the house. I have a picture of it. 803 Poppet's Way, Crosby, Texas. It's, you can look on Google Earth. There it is. I'm sure that the people, if I guess somebody lives there now because I looked it up on Zillow just out of curiosity. Like I said, it was built in 1979. Apparently somebody lives there now because it's not on the market. Because I saw, like I said, there's not a huge amount of information about this case, weirdly. You'd think it would be because I think, like I said, that this is kind of where they got the idea for Poltergeist. But I saw like a couple of paranormal groups that just went there and did like EVP sessions and shit like that. Which, if people live in the house, they're probably just like over it at this point. She'll like, get the fuck out of my yard or whatever. But I think that the most recent one was from like a year ago. And I don't think anyone was living there then. So I think somebody has moved into it recently.
Weird.
Maybe. But the weird thing about it is that I found this article. Like I said, this was on Unsolved Mysteries and shit. And, before we go too far, too, the reason I'm saying I'm not sure if this is what inspired Poltergeist, like I said, I'm pretty sure that it must have been because it's very similar. I mean, there was a cemetery,
the
you only moved the
cemetery,
headstones, the tree, that whole fucking thing.
Yeah. The swimming pool and finding bodies.
Right.
That sounds like it.
So, like I said, when I saw this on Unsolved Mysteries, they said they moved in 1982, which makes me feel like, oh, well, probably not, because Poltergeist came out in 1982, which means it was probably filmed the year before that. However, when I looked up the house on Zillow, they said it had been built in 1979. And I think the families had moved in shortly after they were built. So they might have moved in earlier. And I should note, too, that Tobe Hooper, who directed Poltergeist, and we did a review of Poltergeist, if you want to go back and check that out. Tobe Hooper was actually from Texas. So he might have known about that story.
It sounds plausible.
It
didn't really
leading
take
up
that,
to this.
It doesn't really take that long to make a movie.
True.
Okay, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You could do that in a year, easy.
Because it's just too similar.
Yeah.
And it's not a case where the people moved into the house and they saw the movie and then they decided, oh, we're going to come out with this story, because evidently they came out with this story like before that.
Could have been a Tobe Hooper heard about this going down and then quick made a movie about it.
Yeah.
With the help of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Although, it's unclear who actually directed that.
Well, because Steven Spielberg wanted to do more of a sci-fi thing,
Right.
but he wanted Tobe Hooper to direct it, and then Tobe was like, can we do more of a ghost story? So maybe he had this in mind.
Right.
When he was thinking about making the movie.
Yeah.
Because he was from there and he kind of had heard
So that's the whole case?
Pretty much. Like I said, there was an article that I found from 2007 where they were interviewing people who live in the neighborhood now to see if there have been any further paranormal activity. Now, the funny thing about it is that at the beginning of this article, they're all sitting there saying, yeah, we've never had anything weird happen or anything like that. But the more they like talk to different people, and the more they talk to them,
The weirder it is.
yeah, like people just, oh, well, now that you mention it, like,
Yeah.
you know, our faucets do come on by themselves, and so some of them have reported like some minor
Weird.
paranormal activity, which I thought was very funny because like
Yeah.
it seemed like the whole premise of the article was that, oh, nothing happens now, which seems really weird since those other families like moved out. But I don't know. I just thought that was very funny. And some things that I forgot to mention too, like some other phenomena that was reported when the Haneys and the Williams were there, was that they would also smell coffee every morning at 5 a.m. Like someone was making coffee and then nobody was.
But it wasn't them.
Yeah, and it wasn't them. It was like, oh,
Right.
the ghost making me coffee. That's nice. But also, some people reported some weird shit with like their pets and stuff. Like their birds would like peck their babies to death, or like
shit.
cats would eat their kittens, like weird shit like that. So that was some other kind of stuff that was reported. You know, but it's just kind of funny the way this article, I don't even remember where I got it from, but you know, where it said we don't experience anything, but then some of them actually did. Now, again, while I was looking for this case or looking for more information about this case, I came across this article that was on CNN.com, and it was from July of 2018. Now, this was from another neighborhood near Houston, Texas. And this was a plot of land that was owned by the a Texas school district. And they were going to build like this new technical center. It's called Sugarland. It was a suburb southwest of Houston. They're going to build a new technical center on this piece of land. Now, evidently, there was like this local historian, and he knew like a lot about cemeteries in the area. And he knew that there had been other ones, and that, you know, the headstones had been removed or they'd been forgotten. So he told the developers that were building this technical center, hey, you know, might want to check that plot before you get too far into it to see if there's like a cemetery there, because there's a lot of cemeteries around here that are not official or they're not designated. So they started looking around in this area where they were building, and sure enough, they found a cemetery that had, so far, 95 bodies in it.
Okay.
There's 95 fucking bodies.
Yeah.
And what they found out was that this was yet another black cemetery. Now, these were, what they think these people were, is that they weren't slaves necessarily, but these were older than the Black Hope Cemetery ones. They think this was sometime between like the late 1800s and like 1910 or something.
What state
that these
again?
bodies,
Texas?
this is Texas.
Yeah.
This is not far from the Black Hope Cemetery,
Okay.
same city, you know, just a few miles away. They think that what happened here was that after slavery was abolished, you know, the economy in Texas kind of took a downturn because they didn't have all that free labor anymore. So what they started doing was that companies would start essentially enslaving convicts. You know what I mean? They would take people from prisons and they would basically sell them off to all these companies that would put them to work and
Make them trustees.
and like work
Yeah.
them to death, and not feed them and stuff. And so evidently there's like all of these cemeteries that are kind of unmarked. They did put them in boxes at least, but they didn't like make markers or anything like that. So there's just kind of these big mass graves of like all these pine boxes. And that's what this was. Was they found this kind of massive cemetery of all and they said the people in them, they said all but one of them were men, aged between 14 years old and 70 years old. They said most of them, they could tell from the bones that they had been malnourished. Also that they had been worked pretty much to death.
These are prisoners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, some of them were kids. Like some of them were like 14 years old. So
That was an adult back then.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
That's
like
how-
that's really
Right.
that's kind of a modern concept. Like
Right, yeah.
being
Adulthood is a modern
being
concept.
a teenager. Back then you were 12 and they're like, all right, get married and
Yeah.
get out of here. Go
Yeah.
get a job. Go work in the coal mine.
You
But
didn't have-
yeah, so
They didn't have the teenager concept back in the 1800s.
I feel like that was just like a thing
That's a
that came about
1950s.
till 1950s.
Yeah.
That was like a 1950s
No
concept.
such thing as a teenager.
No, it's like
No.
once you were a certain age, that was just like
You were an
know,
adult.
Yeah, go
Well, I
work.
gotta just go back and look at the photographs, man. People at fucking 13 dressed like adults. They treated them like adults.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a modern concept and
Yeah.
people forget about it.
Right.
But yeah, so that was apparently there's more of these cemeteries, but that was the one that has been found the most recently. Last I heard there was 95 bodies. There may be more. I'm not sure if they've identified any of them because I didn't see any more recent
Yeah.
articles about it, but I just kind of came across that and I thought that was very interesting. So they're like, oh, well, Texas is just like full of these undisclosed cemeteries, and you never know, you might be digging around your yard for a
Yeah.
swimming pool or whatever.
Well, they
and
were
just
easy to
come
make.
across them.
They were easy to make. My step granddad made one.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about
Yeah,
this.
it's in Laurel, Mississippi. This is back in the 60s. Must have been early 60s. My dad told me all about it. This is my dad's stepdad. Well, after my dad's dad died, my real granddad, his mom ended up remarrying and married this fucking ex-con. Okay? He was in there for some shyster shit for a couple of years. He gets out. His name was Bill Womack. He was a big dude. He's like fucking 6'2". Big tough guy. I knew him as C-Dad or C-Daddy. Everybody called him C-Daddy.
Oh, Lord.
Back in Mississippi, everybody had to have a fucking nickname. You know what I'm talking about? Well, one of the cons that he had going is that he leased a plot of land. I don't remember where he leased it from. It might have been the town, the city, Laurel, Mississippi,
Yeah.
and got it zoned for burial, which back in those days and in Laurel, Mississippi, that's about like for garbage disposal, really. You know, fucking if it's not. You know, they had rich cemeteries near towards the center of that town, but that was expensive land. Cheap land, you know, that would have been, you know, out near the outskirts of Laurel. And he leased that land out there and turned it into a cemetery. And that was for very low income, which meant black people back in those days. This is Jim Crow era.
Yeah.
All right. And I heard all these fucking stories. My dad worked there as a teenager, as a grave digger. Where was old black guy? He said that would trip him the fuck out, that old black guy. Go out there and he'd start talking to all those dead people. Y'all stay down in there. We're only going to be here for a few minutes. We're going to dig it up and then we'll be out of here. And it scared the shit out of my dad.
Well, he's like making sure nobody
He's
gets up.
Nobody gets up. Y'all just stay down in there. And
I don't blame him.
yeah, and
I'm
there was
just
all
like,
these.
chill, man. I'll be out of here. I'll be
Yeah.
here in just a minute. Don't get up
So-
and walk around.
What they would do, you know, his name was Bill Womack. That was my step grandfather's name. They would bury people down in there on credit. He would extend the credit.
Yeah.
So a lot of these poor black families didn't have the money to actually, you know, there was like a fee to be buried. You know, you can't be
Well,
buried
yeah.
for free. You know
Still
what I mean?
is.
So they had to pay monthly after the bodies were buried.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like a little rental plot.
Right, like a rental thing.
That's fucked up.
Well, they had all these fucking scams going on, you know what I mean? First of all, my dad was always nervous to dig a grave in there, you know what I mean?
Why?
As a
Because he
teen-
thought there was already one there?
No, they fucking they fucking buried them so close together
Oh.
that while you were digging the hole, there was always this fucking risk that you would hit a coffin, and they would.
Well, yeah,
Sometimes
that's what I
he'd
was
dig
saying.
down like that, and all of a sudden the fucking wall would collapse in, and a bunch of coffin water would come down into the hole that you were digging, bones and shit. You know what I mean? He'd fucking dive up out him and that old black dude digging the flame. Ah! They'd jump up out of there to let all the water fucking.
You couldn't pay me enough to do that.
It was
fucking
nasty. Okay. And then here's the deal. All right. Some of these families that were fucking buried in there on credit
thing. Yeah.
wouldn't make their bills. Okay?
Oh, I can see where this
You
is
see where this is going? So Bill, my step granddad, would fucking track them down, the surviving relatives of who ordered this plot, and say, "Y'all need to pay me. I'm gonna dig it. I'm gonna dig him up. I'm gonna put him right here on your front doorstep." And they go, "Well, we'll get back with you," you know. And there'd be all these excuses. So he's like, "All right," and he had this rigmarole that he put him through. All right, because this is old shyster shit. You know what I mean? This is how you made money back in Mississippi. He'd get a coffin, okay, of the same brand that they were normally burying people in there. They're little fucking, like I said, like pine boxes like that, right? And fucking take a bunch of mud and dirt and put that all on in a coffin and put it on the back of the truck and throw a tarp over it and drive up to their house and throw the tarp back. So we'll put him on your front lawn. No, hold up, hold up, hold up. And they'd come up with the money because they thought the body was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Well,
actually
as
just
you
an
would.
empty box. You know what I mean? But that was how they got the money out of it.
That's a pretty good scam he had going.
Yeah, he had a good scam going. But it never... That cemetery was really only an operating business for about... It never really made any profit.
I was gonna say that
No.
doesn't seem like a very sound business
No,
venture.
it was just one of these scams that an ex-con could come up with to make money without actually having to work.
Right.
Because
And you
all
wouldn't have
the
to
labor,
put much money
no,
up
no,
front.
and all the labor was subbed out
Right.
to other people. You didn't have to manage that business.
All you needed was a plot of land and a shovel.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Exactly. And you could go to the city and find worthless land in Mississippi back then.
Right.
And then you would lease the land based upon the monthly charges for the burial plots.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to have any money in your hand to get this done. It didn't work. It only went on for about 10 years, 10, 15 years. And that cemetery plot ended up closing up, and it got reconquered by nature. So and my dad told me where it was, but I forgot. It's somewhere in Laurel, and it was not it wasn't in a good place
In an area that would have been developed.
No.
Not like this one in Texas
So
where they built a neighborhood on top of it.
Conceivably, today a company could come in there and go, "We want to buy this little plot of land and put houses on it," like developers.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the city government would have no idea that was a cemetery at one time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And like in this particular article where they were talking about the one that they found in 2018 when they were digging for the technical school outside of Houston, they are estimating that across the state of Texas, and I'm just talking about the state of Texas here, they're estimating that there are 50,000 cemeteries, even though only about 1,700 of them are like officially recognized or like have a historic designation. Yeah. So that's a lot of cemeteries that not on the record. But like you said, it's not. You can easily see how that would happen.
Yeah, and the headstones that Bill Womack sold is my step granddad really. You know, were cheap. They're not there anymore. They were wooden and real, yeah. And all that shit's fucking lost now. He was basically he left the family by the time I was like 11 or 12. He ran off with the neighbor's wife.
Classy.
Yeah, he ran. My dad nearly killed him. When my dad was about 14 one time, and he heard his mama outside the window fucking screaming, "Help me, help me, help me." He looked out the window, and old Bill Womack was chasing my grandmother around the parked car in the front door, or in the front driveway. He was drunk, chasing her around, and she was holding him off with a rake. All right, I forgot what it was about. My dad jumped up and ran. My dad was about 14. He ran to his room and grabbed that fucking Colt Woodsman 22 that he had.
He could have shoot that motherfucker.
Oh yeah, his little 22. Colt Woodsman was like a 50 Zero 22 pistol, big old long target pistol. And yeah, Southerners back in my dad's day as kids owned guns. They still own them as kids. So he got his damn Colt Woodsman and ran out the front door and fucking got in between him and Bill. He started shooting at the ground, pop, 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 near his feet, and held him off. He, drunk, you know. The neighbors called the cops, and the cops showed up. They hauled Bill off.
Although, how rad would that have been if your grandmother killed him with a rake?
Yeah, he ended up leaving not too long after that. Anyway, well, I was about 12, so it was actually longer because I can remember him. That was right before my dad went to the Navy. He said he had to get out of there. He would have killed that dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I ended up meeting him later on, a long time after the divorce. I met him in a bar when I was visiting my dad one time. I didn't know who it was.
How random.
Yeah, and he goes, "You know who I am, don't you?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "My name's Bill Womack." And I went, "Man, you used to be my granddad." He goes, "Yeah." And he was, just a big old dude, normal guy. But yeah, my dad was shooting at his feet. My dad was about 14. He's fucking dancing. He's held him off at bay. And my Aunt Krista was about 10 at the time, fucking yelling out through the window, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
You have the best fucking family
Back in the
stories.
day. Yeah, that was back in the day.
I mean,
And nobody went to prison back in those days. They hauled him off to the drunk take. He was drunk.
Yeah.
He wasn't normally like that. He was mad over something that my grandmother did. I don't remember what it was. Something stupid. Something that wasn't that
The
important.
biscuits were burnt.
No, it was. I think it had something to do with money or something that he owned. She got rid of something that was his. I don't remember.
His beer can collection.
Something like that. And he was drunk, and he was. My dad, I'm gonna fucking shoot you. You know, I'd do my dad's voice.
Oh,
My dad was a little bitty dude. He was only like 5'3".
He's still a little bitty dude.
My dad was about 5'3", and my granddad was about 5'2".
Yeah.
But he could talk his way up into any skirt. He got like 2 girls pregnant by the time he was out of high school. His name was Bolivar Ross. These are little bitty Irish monkeys, little Irish American monkey people. We got progressively taller as each generation went on.
Well,
Yeah.
as the nutrition got better.
Yeah, and just marrying tall girls.
That too.
Marrying tall girls.
Yeah.
It's a different time.
Unfortunately, I'm not tall.
They put Bill in a damn drunk take, and then they let him out the next day, and my grandmother didn't press any charges on him, and nobody pressed charges on anybody. But the neighbors called the cops. My dad was out there shooting at him with a 22.
Well,
at his feet.
yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that happened a lot back. Like, my family's from the South. Well, half of it's from the South, and then half of it's from Maryland. But,
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of the thing back then.
We didn't take it seriously.
Well, that's the thing. It was family stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
I shot his eye out, but, he was
Yeah.
being a douche. What do you want me to do
Yeah.
about it? Nobody, reported it. You're like,
No.
I had that coming. It was
Yeah.
all kind of that kind of crap.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so...
But that's give you some background about how houses can end up being built on top of those cemeteries.
Yeah. I'm not...
Because that was a shady business back in the day,
Yeah.
especially in the South. This is Texas. Yeah, there was some shady shit. The people that owned those cemeteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I mean...
And after a certain amount of time, the locations of defunct cemeteries is kind of forgotten.
Well, yeah, how would you know?
Yeah.
If it's not there.
Yeah, everybody that knew about it is dead.
Right.
Except that one dude that came up and says, I think there's graves right there.
Well, because
Yeah.
they were old enough that they remembered
remembered, right.
Like that one guy, he's like, look, I was a teenager and I dug a lot of those graves. Like I knew those people.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can see... Now, I'm not absolving the property development company. I don't know if it was like a Poltergeist movie situation where like the guy was perfectly aware that there was a graveyard there and he's just like, yeah, let's just get rid of those headstones and then we'll just like pretend this never happened.
The guys that were digging probably knew. But they didn't want to lose the job.
That's what I mean, because
Yeah.
I feel like, here's the thing. Even if you didn't know from the outset that that was a graveyard, which in this situation, in the Black Hope situation, that is entirely possible because it was not, like I said, it was not an official quote unquote cemetery. It was just like on this private piece of land. There was probably about 60 bodies buried there. And, there were headstones, but they weren't like super expensive ones or anything. So if it happened that the, company bought it and it's like, well, but you'd think when they started digging for the foundations of houses, because they usually only bury bodies like, 6 feet deep, right?
Yeah.
You would think when they dug the foundations of
A lot of the foundations don't go down that deep.
Maybe not.
But
I think they would have come across
that
them
guy
at some
knew that
point.
if you're going to dig a swim pool, you're going to hit that shit, though.
Well, yeah, that's why that guy
Okay.
came over to the house
Yeah.
and said,
But
hey,
no, a house foundation.
don't be alarmed, but there's going to be bodies there when you look.
A house foundation, especially if it's on flat land, you're talking 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess.
I always kind of feel like, because
there's
look,
going to be pipes and there's going to be
yeah,
power lines, but that's not all that deep.
because where we live is, we live like right by I-4, like the major. Like,
They don't know what I-4 is.
Well, that's why I was just going to explain. The major like east-west highway in Central Florida goes from Daytona to Tampa, all the way across the state. We live probably just a mile or two from that. But where we live, when we first moved in here, it was fairly rural. Like it's kind of, it was a lot of like horse farms and
Not
stuff
now.
like that. But just in the 7 years I think we've lived here, they have built neighborhoods all around. Like it's still pretty rural. It's still pretty. There's still trees. There's like a county trail like
An
behind our
occasional
house.
bear.
Occasional bears. We saw deer coming back from the movie last night.
Yeah.
Shit like that. Armadillos, bunnies. We see all kind of wildlife, but
In 10 years, that won't be here.
yeah, I feel like in a few years this is just going to be all built up.
Yeah.
But I was going to say they built like a really big neighborhood right behind. There's like a county trail, like a, just like a walking and biking trail, and that goes all around the county. And then behind that, they built like this other really big neighborhood. So every time we walked by there, we would see the construction.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there's bodies there, someone would have found that shit while they were digging the houses out. So I kind of feel like the people that were digging the houses out in the company were maybe like, let's just cover that up. And then we'll just put the houses on top of it and no one will ever know anything. But like you said, when the Haneys decided, hey, let's put in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's when the trouble occurred. And as I said, just in the fucking Poltergeist movie, Joe Beth Williams falls in the fucking thing and all the fucking bodies popped out. And those are real fucking bodies, apparently. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to say, too, was that when I used to go, because I used to be married to a British guy many years ago, and I used to go back and forth to the UK all the time. And one time when we were over there, my ex-husband's uncle took us to this place. He drives us out in fucking remote Wales, right? And he drives us up in the mountains in the fucking middle of the night. And I think he's gonna like take us out there and murder us because I don't know the dude that well, right? So that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, oh, this is like the beginning of an Unsolved Mysteries episode. And then later they're like, and then we never found her bones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of thing.
Okay.
But what he was showing us was that there is out in the mountains. There is a little cemetery out there called Cefngolai, and it's a cholera cemetery. And it was from like, I guess like the mid 1800s, like a whole bunch of people died like in this village and they like put them up there. And the creepy thing is there's no sign, there's no road to it, there's no anything. Like he goes like off road. He's like driving on the road and he's like, oh, it's over here in the grass. Shoo, and he's like driving off the mountain in the fucking grass. And there's like fucking hills down here. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. Holy crap. But then, and it's the middle of the night too. So he's like driving and then the headlights all of a sudden like pick out like all these little fucking gravestones like sticking out of the fucking mountain in the middle of nowhere. And it was like the creepiest thing ever. I wrote like a short story about it called Quarantine. It's in one of my short story books. But that's pretty much exactly how it happened except for the end where all the like monsters came out of the thing. That didn't really happen obviously. But that whole experience of just like driving off road in like the mountains of Wales and seeing all these little gravestones like pop up all of a sudden was like super creepy. But that's just thinking about this Black Hope thing like reminded me of that. Yeah. But okay. So I think that'll do it for our discussion of the Black Hope Curse, Black Hope Cemetery.
If you want to know more, go on that damn. I think it was season 2, episode 3, Unsolved Mysteries. What's the guy's name? The other host.
Dennis Farina.
Yeah. And it's there on...
I think it was on a Robert Stack one, too, but they had... Because you remember, like, when they did the Dennis Farina ones, like, they repackaged a lot of the ones from the early Robert Stack things. Yeah. Because I saw the
It's on that episode. It's towards the end, and it's actually quite compelling.
It's like the last case that because there's like the Black Dahlia. There's some other cases.
It's got the witnesses there and everything, and I watched it, and I was like, man, I think those people are telling the truth.
They did seem kind of upset about it. And like I said, they're not saying anything super outlandish, so... You know.
Just...
and the bodies were there, so it's not like they made that shit up.
Yeah, and it was several different families, and they were just reported...
Because it wasn't... I mean, those are the two main families that reported stuff, but apparently there were, like, about 10 or 11 other families on the street that also had, like, minor poltergeist activity happening in their house, too, like, after the bodies. Yeah,
weird apparitions, toilets flushing, objects moving.
Yeah, shit like that. Like, they never did look for any more bodies because I guess, like I said, there was the
mysterious
whole thing about...
deaths. You know, they were all dying of cancer.
Yeah, that creeped me out, too. Like, that fucking 30-year-old girl, like, dying of cancer, like, or dying of a heart attack like
weird
that. That was, like, super
stuff.
weird. Yeah. So, and also, like I said, they made a TV movie called Grave Secrets. It's not fantastic. It's a TV movie, you know what I mean? Yeah, Patty Duke was in it. Yeah. She played, like, the mom.
Kind of like a fake Poltergeist.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the movie, I think the movie was made in the 92, I want to say, 94 or
Yeah.
something like that. They made the neighborhood look almost exactly like the neighborhood from Poltergeist. Even though if you look at the real neighborhood, like on Google Earth, it doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah.
It looks much more like, late 70s,
Yeah.
modest kind of neighborhood. It's not like shitty looking or anything, but it doesn't look
Yeah.
anything like the one in
It's
Poltergeist.
worth taking a look at both of them, but I'd really
Yeah.
recommend the Unsolved Mysteries episode.
Yeah, that's
Season
on
2,
YouTube.
Episode 3, Farina.
And Grave Secrets is the name of the TV movie, and that's
Yeah.
on YouTube as well. A couple people have put it up, so you can go check it out if you want to. And it's kind of accurate, even though the family are like, man, it's not really like the book, but whatever. So you can go check it out if you want. All right, so we're going to wrap up episode 139. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. And remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe on all your social media. What was I going to say? Oh, share with all your friends and family. Also, if you'd like to financially support the show, it would be much appreciated. You can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13o'clock podcast, or you can go to our blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a little PayPal button in the sidebar where you can go if you want to give a one-time donation. That is also much appreciated. Remember, check out our last movie review, which was David Cronenberg's Rabid, which I just found out was going to be remade this year, or so I heard.
We'll see.
So we'll see how that goes. I think The Fly is going to get remade too again. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But you know what? I
They
felt,
remake everything. They don't have
well,
any imagination.
I felt like I was mad about Suspiria getting remade, but then I ended up really liking the remake. So I'm not
It was good at the very end, but it was kind of slow.
It was. Well, I like that they did something different with it.
Yeah.
If they're going to do something different with it, then I don't really have that much of a problem with it. They've been remaking shit since the beginning of fucking Hollywood, so I'm not worried about it. And remember that our regular episodes come out every Tuesday. We also have movie retrospective, usually older movies. That comes out every Friday. And we also do 13 o'clock matinee, which is 3 new movies in the theater. That comes out every Sunday, so check them out if you haven't already. That'll do it for episode 139. We will see you next time. Bye.